space was supposed to be silent. But aboard the USS Wayfarer, the void was alive with sound warning chimes, sensor pings, and the soft hum of a ship holding its breath. Captain Mark Ellison stood at the forward observation deck, a tall, broad-shouldered man with streaks of gray in his dark hair. His reflection glimmered faintly in the viewport as he stared at the impossible phenomenon ahead of them, a ripple in space, glowing like a wound in the night. The crew was silent too, as though speaking too loudly might provoke whatever it was. "Helm, bring us to a full stop," Ellison said at last, his voice quiet but steady. The Wayfarer's engines wound down with a low whine. The ripple hung there, suspended against the stars, pulsing faintly like a living thing. "Distance?" Ellison asked. 200,000 clicks, Lieutenant Sarah Kincaid replied from her console. She was young but razor-sharp, her blonde hair pulled back into a strict bun that made her look even more serious than she was. Her voice trembled just slightly. "It's not natural, Captain. I've got gravitational shear, exotic particles off the scale, whatever that thing is, it's been engineered." "Engineered by who?" That came from Dr. Ethan Morales, the Wayfarer's chief astrophysicist. He leaned over Sarah's shoulder, his dark eyes alight with curiosity. "This isn't a random anomaly. This is a gate. Someone built it, someone advanced enough to manipulate spacetime on a massive scale." The word "someone" hung in the air like a curse. Ellison felt the deck under his feet, felt the faint rumble of the life support systems, heard the whisper of his own breath inside the helmet-like quiet of the bridge. The Wayfarer was alone, far from charted space. The nearest colony was 60 light-years behind them. No reinforcements, no backup. The thought sent a chill crawling down his spine. "Captain," Sarah said, her fingers dancing over the console, "I'm detecting energy buildup inside the structure." "Something's happening." The ripple flared, blinding white. "Shields!" Ellison barked. Before the ship's defensive systems could fully engage, an invisible force slammed into them. The Wayfarer shuddered so hard that Ellison nearly lost his footing. The bridge lights flickered, and the entire ship groaned like a living creature in pain. "Negative inertia spike!" Sarah shouted over the alarms. "Something's pulling us in gravitational lock. Reverse thrust. Get us clear. Engines aren't responding." The starfield twisted. Reality stretched into a tunnel of color, spiraling faster and faster until the human eye couldn't make sense of it. Crew members clung to their stations as the ship was dragged forward like a toy caught in a cosmic drain. And then, a thunderclap. They shot out the other side. The silence that followed was almost worse than the noise. Ellison's breath caught in his throat. The forward viewport no longer showed empty space but a scene that belonged in a nightmare or a dream, depending on who you asked. An entire fleet loomed before them. Colossal warships, their hulls etched with glowing sigils, stretched across the void in tight formation. Smaller escort craft swarmed between them like wasps. And at the center of it all was a station, no, a city suspended in space, big enough to house millions. It glimmered with light, its surface alive with motion. "Jesus," Sarah whispered, her hands frozen over the controls. We're in the middle of them." Morales stood transfixed, his mouth slightly open. That station has its own gravity well." "The energy output alone, Captain, we're looking at a civilization centuries ahead of us." Ellison forced his mind to focus. "Status report. Shields stable. Engines still offline, whatever the jump did scrambled half the systems. But we're holding." Outside, the alien fleet was beginning to move. Sensors chimed as targeting locks registered. One by one, the ships turned to face them, their weapons arrays glowing to life. Then, a voice crackled through the comms, guttural, alien, impossible for the human ear to parse. The ship's translation AI kicked in a half-second later, its mechanical voice eerily calm. "Unregistered vessel. You have entered Imperial territory. Power down immediately and prepare for inspection. Non-compliance will result in destruction." The bridge went deathly still. Ellison felt every eye turn to him, waiting. "Open a channel," he said. Sarah hesitated. Sir, they have us dead to rights. We can't fight them. Open the damn channel. A soft chime confirmed the link. This is Captain Mark Ellison of the United Systems Starship Wayfarer, he said, his voice level but firm. We were pulled here by an anomaly. We mean no harm. We are explorers, not invaders. There was a pause. Then the alien voice came back, sharper this time, with what almost sounded like amusement. Compliance is not optional. Power down your vessel and prepare for boarding. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. The comms cut. No one spoke for a long moment. They just threatened us, Sarah said finally, her voice tight. Ellison stared out at the fleet surrounding them. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of weapons trained on them. And all of it radiating a single, clear message: you are nothing here. His jaw clenched. Humanity had spent centuries clawing its way off its birthworld, surviving wars, famines, and the cold indifference of the universe to claim a place among the stars. And now, on their very first accidental step into someone else's backyard, they were being told to kneel. Something deep inside him hardened. Bring communications back online, Ellison said at last. Sarah frowned. What do you want me to say? He looked out at the alien fleet, at the glowing lines of their massive ships hemming them in on all sides. Tell them, he said quietly, that we'll talk. But we don't surrender. And somewhere in his chest, that spark of defiance caught fire. The galaxy had just discovered humanity. And humanity was about to discover just how little it cared about someone else's empire. The hiss of the airlock was like a gunshot. The crew of the USS Wayfarer stood in the mess hall, ringed by armed strangers. The alien boarding party moved with military precision, their heavy armor clattering as they took up positions around the room. Each one was over 7 feet tall, with chitinous plates that gleamed in the white ship lights. For arms each, 2 for their plasma rifles, 2 ending in cruel, clawed manipulators. Captain Mark Ellison stood at the front of his crew, spine straight. He had to look up to meet the lead warrior's gaze. Remain still, the alien commanded. Its voice was deep, resonant, and carried a tone of absolute authority. The translation AI rendered the words in English a heartbeat later, the mechanical voice almost too calm for the moment. Dr. Ethan Morales, ever the scientist, took an involuntary step forward, eyes wide with fascinated horror. Incredible, a fully bipedal carapace species, dual weapon bearing. Ellison reached out and pulled him back. Ethan. Not the time. The alien leader's head swiveled, mandibles clicking. This vessel and all aboard are now property of the Drakari Imperial Navy. You will comply or be terminated. Sarah Kincaid's knuckles whitened on the back of the chair she was gripping. Property, she muttered. We're not cargo. Ellison kept his tone even, though his blood was running hot. You're trespassing on a sovereign vessel. Identify yourselves. The warrior's eyes glowed faintly, like coals behind a mask. We are the Drakari, enforcers of imperial law. This region belongs to the Empire of 12 sectors. You have violated imperial space. By accident, Ellison said. Your anomaly pulled us here. We didn't choose to come. Intent is irrelevant, the warrior said coldly. You will be taken to the tribunal. Your vessel will be impounded for inspection. Resistance will be met with lethal force. Silence stretched across the mess hall, thick enough to choke on. Morales glanced at Ellison, whispering just loud enough for the captain to hear, they're not negotiating. This is a sentence, not a conversation. Ellison didn't respond. His crew was scared, he could feel it radiating off them. Fear was fine. Fear was normal. But fear could also get people killed if it turned into panic. He forced himself to keep his face calm, measured. Very well, he said at last. We'll cooperate. But I demand to speak to whoever is in command here. Someone with authority. The alien warrior's mandibles twitched, a gesture Ellison suspected was meant to be amused. You will. You will stand before the prefect. He will decide whether your species lives or dies. They were escorted through the docking tube under heavy guard. The Wayfarer looked small and fragile behind them, clamped to the side of a ship so massive it blotted out half the stars. The alien warship was a cathedral of metal, black, angular corridors lit by faint blue running lights, the air thick with the hum of power conduits. The Drakari soldiers moved with disciplined, synchronized steps, their clawed feet clinking against the deck. Sarah walked just ahead of Ellison, whispering out of the side of her mouth. "They've got at least 100 soldiers on this ship. Maybe more. If they wanted to, they could wipe us out without even blinking." "Not helping, Lieutenant," Ellison muttered back. Morales, on the other hand, was visibly trying to memorize every symbol on the bulkheads, every glowing console they passed. "This ship is running on some kind of fusion core I've never even seen before," he breathed. "Captain, if we survive this, the data we could bring back." "If we survive," Ellison said grimly. They were brought to what could only be called a throne room, a cavernous chamber with vaulted ceilings and glowing banners hanging from the walls, each one emblazoned with the same sigil, a clawed hand clutching a star. At the far end of the chamber sat a figure in dark armor, its back straight, forearms resting on the arms of a throne-like chair. This was no mere soldier. Its carapace was inlaid with gleaming gold filigree, its mandibles sharper, its glowing eyes more intelligent, more calculating. The guards forced the humans to their knees. Ellison refused. He stayed standing, meeting the prefect's gaze even as 2 guards raised their rifles. The prefect raised one claw, stopping them. "You are humans," the prefect said, the translation AI rendering the words in a deep, regal tone. "Your species is unregistered. Your homeworld is unknown. And yet you trespass in the heart of Imperial space." Ellison kept his voice steady. "We were brought here against our will. We are explorers. We didn't mean to cross any borders." "Borders are for the strong to define," the prefect said coolly. "You are weak. You will submit your vessel, your technology, and your knowledge of your species to the Empire. In exchange, you may live." Morales actually laughed a single, bitter bark of disbelief. "Submit? Are you serious? We've barely met you, and you're already claiming ownership of an entire species?" The prefect turned its glowing gaze toward Morales. "Your insolence is noted. Perhaps we will display you as an example to your kind." Sarah's hand twitched toward the sidearm she no longer had. Ellison took a slow step forward, every word deliberate. "You can threaten us, you can hold us at gunpoint, but you will not own us. Humanity doesn't kneel." For a moment, there was silence, an oppressive, dangerous silence. Then the prefect leaned forward, its mandibles curling into what might have been a smile. "Then you will die." Ellison didn't flinch. "Not before we show you what humanity is capable of." They were thrown into a detention cell, a stark room with a single light strip glowing overhead. For the first time since the boarding, they were alone. Sarah leaned against the wall, her breathing shallow. "Sir, what do we do now? They're going to kill us." Ellison crouched near the floor, tracing a finger across the tiny panel near the door. His face was calm, but his mind was a storm. "We're not going to let them," he said simply. Morales frowned. "And how exactly do you plan to stop them?" "In case you missed it, we're locked in a cell, on a warship, surrounded by about 100 aliens with guns." Ellison looked up, his eyes hard. "Before we left the Wayfarer, I sent a command to the ship's AI. A failsafe. If we don't send a cancel code within 6 hours." Sarah's eyes widened. "You didn't." Ellison nodded grimly. "She's going to break free." Morales blinked, then grinned like a man seeing daylight after a storm. "Captain, that's insane." Ellison's lips curved into a humorless smile. "Desperate times, Doctor." And in the distance, somewhere deep within the alien warship, the first alarms began to wail. The first alarm was distant, a faint rising wail that echoed down the metal corridors of the Zereth Dominion. Captain Mark Ellison was on his feet instantly, pacing the cell. The other humans tensed, glancing at him. Sarah Kincaid's voice was sharp. "That's it, isn't it? That's the Wayfarer." Ellison's jaw was set. Right on schedule. The alarm grew louder, joined by a harsh voice over the alien ship's intercom, rapid, guttural words that the translator couldn't keep up with. But they didn't need a translation to understand. The whole ship was on alert. A deep, distant boom shook the deck plates, knocking Morales off balance. "What the hell was that?" he shouted. Ellison's eyes narrowed. "Our ship just blew the clamps holding her in place." Sarah grinned fiercely. "She's free." The cell door remained sealed, but now there were sounds in the corridor: boots pounding, alien voices barking orders, the faint hiss of atmospheric seals being engaged. Ellison turned to his crew. "This is our chance. Be ready." It happened fast. The cell door slid open as two guards rushed in, weapons raised, but they didn't expect resistance. Ellison lunged at the first, slamming his shoulder into the alien's midsection. Sarah grabbed the second's rifle and wrenched it sideways, firing point blank. The blast lit the cell with a searing blue flash. Morales grabbed the fallen alien's sidearm and handed it to Ellison. "Guess we're doing this the hard way." "Move," Ellison barked, sweeping the corridor. They sprinted into the passageway, blaster fire already echoing in the distance. The ship's lights strobed red, sirens screaming. Sarah kept pace beside him, firing bursts down intersecting corridors. "They'll throw everything they've got at us before we get anywhere near the hangar." "Then we don't give them the chance," Ellison said. The crew moved like a single organism, darting from cover to cover, using every bit of training they'd drilled 100 times in simulations. Only this wasn't a drill, this was survival. The first squad of Drakari soldiers rounded the corner ahead. Plasma fire scorched the walls, sending sparks raining down. Ellison dove behind a bulkhead and returned fire. Morales, pale but steady, crouched beside him and kept the corridor lit with suppressive bursts. "They just keep coming," Sarah shouted, ducking as a blast seared overhead. Ellison toggled the communicator on the captured rifle, hoping the AI on the Wayfarer could hear. "Aurora, status." The calm, synthetic voice of the Wayfarer's AI answered at once. "Captain, I have achieved full separation. Engines are online. Shall I begin evasive maneuvers?" "Not without us," Ellison growled. "Prep for immediate pickup." "We're coming to you." "Understood." They reached the central hangar deck at last, a cavernous space buzzing with chaos. Dozens of alien technicians were scrambling to lock down fighter craft and raise barriers. Soldiers were already taking positions behind cover, plasma cannons being wheeled into place. And there, through the flickering energy shield at the far end of the bay, floated the Wayfarer, battered, scarred from the docking clamps, but alive and waiting. "She came back for us," Sarah breathed. Ellison didn't hesitate. "Move." The firefight that followed was brutal and close range. Plasma bolts turned deck plating molten under their feet, alien soldiers screamed in fury as the humans cut through their ranks. Sarah moved like lightning, covering their flanks. Morales laughed once, wild and exhilarated, the laugh of a man who had just realized he wasn't going to die quietly. "Go, go, go." Ellison shouted, firing until the rifle overheated. They reached the airlock hatch just as the Wayfarer extended a docking bridge. One by one, the crew dove through under covering fire. Ellison was the last aboard, slamming the hatch shut behind him as plasma blasts hammered the bulkhead. "Detach!" The Wayfarer's thrusters roared, yanking them free of the Zereth Dominion's hangar. "Helm," Ellison said, dropping into the captain's chair, "get us the hell out of here." The stars streaked as the Wayfarer accelerated hard. Behind them, the alien warship was already turning, its massive guns charging. "Multiple ships breaking formation," Sarah reported. "They're scrambling fighters. Whole fleets waking up." "Then let's show them how fast a human ship can run," Ellison said. The bridge shook as the first salvo from the Dominion's main guns missed them by a hair. "Direct course to the gate," Ellison ordered. Morales glanced back, eyes wide. "We're not going to make it if they get a firing solution." "Then don't let them get one," Ellison snapped. The chase was chaos, alien cruisers cutting across their path, beams of white-hot plasma lancing through the void. The Wayfarer danced between them, dodging fire by bare meters, its small size its only advantage. Inside the bridge, the crew worked as one, sweat beading on foreheads, every breath shallow. Gate coming up fast. Sarah shouted. Punch it, Ellison said. The ship's engines howled, pushing them into their seats. The Wayfarer shot toward the glowing anomaly, the alien fleet a wall of fire closing behind them. One last salvo struck home, a glancing hit that sent the ship spinning. Consoles sparked, alarms screamed, but they were still flying. Stabilizers holding. Morales yelled. Don't lose her now, Ellison growled. The gate loomed ahead, the same shimmering tear in space that had dragged them here. Jumping in 3, 2, Sarah's hands flew over the console. The Wayfarer plunged into the anomaly. The universe went white. Then black. And then, silence. They were back in familiar space. The bridge crew sat frozen for a moment, breathing hard, as though afraid to break the spell. Then cheers broke out, raw and unrestrained. Morales slumped into a chair and laughed until tears ran down his face. Sarah grinned, cheeks flushed with adrenaline. Ellison just sat there, staring out at the stars, until the silence settled again. Log this mission, he said quietly. First contact with the so-called Galactic Empire. Their diplomacy consists of threats, intimidation, and demands. Sarah turned from her console, her grin fading into something harder. And our answer? Ellison let his gaze sweep over the crew, his crew, alive because they had refused to kneel, then out into the endless night. Our answer, he said, voice low but unyielding, is that humanity doesn't bow. And somewhere, on the far side of that gate, an empire had just learned that lesson the hard way.